I'm from California in a little area called Topanga Canyon, which is kind of a rural section of Los Angeles. Yes, it does exist. We have a creek and we have deer and coyotes, and so yes, I am from sort of Los Angeles, but it's a little different. It's more like here. And if you look on the map, the longitude is exactly a straight line between where I live and Lubbock, which is kind of why the weather's similar. So I looked through some of my poems, and I had one from a while ago about Texas, Midland. I think this happened 20 years ago. And I don't know if everyone remembers, but 20 years ago, there was a little girl who was caught in a well, and the whole universe was focused on her. And so even years after that happened, I came up with this poem. And once I was here, I realized, oh, this is pretty close to Lubbock. So I thought I'd open with that poem for Jessica McClure. Also interesting is she's like 25 now, and she's going to inherit like $1 million from all the donations that people gave when she was in the well. So, little tidbits from Wikipedia. Okay, the well. For Jessica McClure. She focuses on a dark place, a solid rock, a narrow dusk somewhere with just enough room for her below the ground. Harder than granite. She searches for a view above the roar of bulbs flashing, of spots of the color green. This is her contest with sleep, with pins and needles, with the boredom of waiting for someone to help. Trapped nearly 2 days, a new plant's roots, the only arms holding her back from hell. She struggles to free herself, to stand up, to leave, to just walk away and laugh. Now, there is digging, jackhammers, a hole bored large enough for someone to reach in, but yet no one does, yet not large enough room to crawl out. Pneumatic drills, her nursery rhymes penetrating the Texas air. Sparks fly like stars as large hands grow closer, augurs rumble promises. She struggles to stand up, but something holds her back. Another song, her mother's young voice, still as October, inside the house. She imagines a man drowning under dirt, her father taking a photograph, then swinging her high in his arms. Food, water, her left leg bent under her hip. Boring tools. Without warning, one afternoon her life became a wish. It was a game of hide and seek with added consequences. It was just a stone she saw, perhaps, or a flower pot covering a tunnel to eternity. The voice said, "Climb up, slide down, it will do you good," and she listened. This one I wrote about where I live. There's lots of wild birds, and we have a number of feeders with the seeds, and we get all different kinds of birds that come to the yard. And where I write, I look out the window and I can kind of see the birds, and it makes me happy. But one of my favorite birds are these mourning doves, and I just really, my heart goes out to how they look. And so this is a poem about the mourning doves. Mourning doves have such soulful eyes. Their gray suit of feathers blurs and sinks them into the background like a creature in hiding. They hover below the wild bird feeder set up for finches and harvest the shells, the thistle, the seed casings, and what drops after the faux robins, the finches, and phoebes have feasted. The mourning doves huddle and nest in the mountains of seed shells and dirt, and make circles with their small bird bodies, turning into the ground, digging a place around them, as if they were under a shrub with only the black drops of ink from their tail feathers visible. In a group, they lie in wait, their dear gray eyes gloomy and sullen and innocent, and they want what the world desires, to be fed and comfortable and consummated and happy. He talks of guns. He talks of guns and of protecting his family, of having the right not to wait 5 days, 15 hours, of the criminals who will get guns anyway from places we know not of, dare never think about. He asks me if I've ever held a weapon, fired an arm, felt the kick of the bullet shooting out from beneath my outstretched hands that target a dream lost in the distance. I shake my head with a no. He talks of how to fire his gun and how to choose between injuring and killing, and he mentions the NRA and Orange County gun shows, one when he came home empty-handed. He claims there is a weapon of choice for the prey a man wants, a different gun for birds, for snakes, for deer, for rabbits. What about people, I ask, and he says, yes, those too. I hear about how he takes his gun on trips in the car as if it were home. And he swears he hopes he will never use it, and yet it is still there itching in his glove compartment. We talk of the election and of voting for what we believe in, and I admire him just then for understanding that what he kills, he eats. I watch his mouth, a smile of soft chiffon, eyes clear and dark. I know he has been to a place I will never reach, knowing what he wants in the sights of his rifle are the eyes clear of a living being, not of his own kind. This one was written for a friend of mine who talked about his brother. And I was charmed by the story, and so it ended up on the page. Buying sleep. My brother leans over in the cabin bedroom that we shared once a year and says to me, now mind you, this is the brother I have hated all my life. He leans over the bunk bed. Yes, he got the top. He leans into the springs like he's an old car, all 12 years of him. And he says to a boy half his age, a boy tossing and fearing outhouse snakes, and the awful windy silence, the calm of the desert, and the unfed spring of the fear of father, for still being awake when the rest of the world is not. Now this brother leans over and asks in the sweetest voice possible, want to buy some sleep? In the darkness I nod, and then realize years later say, yes. And so he begins. He gathers up a cocoon of sleep in his hands and tucks in my feet, my ankles, my legs, my torso, and then zips it up tightly under my chin, almost as if he loved me. This is Romance of the Reed, brutal, and all the while background ballads play. They say he looked 10 years older than the music. They say the music used his body more than love. The music made changes war, made trying harder than a man ought to, into just silence. Made it seem just for the silence of it all. He wanted to grab the tail of the night. He wanted to take it home and wrap its arms around his sound until it screamed. But the night was timid as the softest notes he knew how to play, and the night came in long, longer than he ever wanted the night to. Okay, I'll do a little shift in gear. I have a series of poems about Central Europe and Eastern Europe, and some are based on photographs and others are based on things I've seen. This one, Portrait of a Girl, 1942, I had found this black and white photograph of a girl that was right before she was being taken to a concentration camp, and I was always haunted by the photo. And then years after I wrote the poem, and I did a little research, and I found out that she came back safely, and I tried to write to her, and she never answered me back, but I always felt a little better about the poem since I know that the really haunting eyes that I saw in the photo, she was one of the lucky ones who made it out. I am the mirror for one who speaks. These fresh gaps are wind in the linden trees, cotton flowers of life. A mirror is not much for all of us, but if we listen for reflection, the clear twin face of a groan behind the looking glass, we hear the cat's hair sounds of all people, grumbling in the same manner about the air, the food, the earth, the sidewalk. I am the mirror for all the world's silence, and the ones who slip through without drawing blood, whose suicides number nothing, next to vast doors too tall to reach heaven, locked forever, whose breaking takes generations sometimes, dull copper paint on the back of a lake. I am the mirror for one who is trembling, like a child who has noticed too much, eyes hard olive pits. I think about how life cracks when the vanity glass overturns our hands, sharp pints in bars, uneven edges of ale, crisp indignities of foam. I am the mirror for all who choose not to speak. I crack in the dark, I shine in the snow. This one's called In Prague, and I was visiting there, and right where I was staying, I did a semester abroad, and right where I was staying, they were digging up a new sewer in the city, and when they were digging, they found bones. And so at this massive intersection, they decided they would stop and find out what was going on with the bones, so they invited all these people from the museum, and they laid out the bones in the middle of this intersection. So I would walk past there and I would look at all this. And juxtaposed with visiting some of the cemeteries, the Jewish cemetery, and I would walk past that. So this poem is kind of a juxtaposition of the digging up in the intersection and the graveyards. There's a word called rodina, which is Czech for family. So it's, when you hear it, if you remember, that's what it means. In Prague, men jackhammer the corner of Yilska and Milkalska, disturbing the air's intonation. The exposed sewer pipes, inches from open graves, lie like illness. As we watch, mourning beaten from bodies escapes in a white whirl of cameos, sand, and milk. Here, rodina means nothing. A skull embedded in a dirt wall seems, for a moment, as white and round as bread. Jaws on metal stands tagged with numbers, wait for a turn to be whole again. Here, dates are rounded to the nearest 100. Tarsals, femurs, ulna, open poured bones like coral, spinal cord beads on strings, legs bowed, dried marrow, darkest tunnels, joints like fists, like teeth. Here, there are no pebbles of prayer left behind. All is traffic, swollen construction, burrows, and picture-taking, stripping the city's bark blind with concrete. Not what I want. So leave this place and take me where bones don't mean treasure, where the air is heavy, where graves are planted like cornrows and evening settles like water. Take me where stones are full enough for stones, and death is a long rope wrapped around kin I cannot have. Wisdom for the hungry, thumbprints for the innocent, tombs for our generations. Take me where memory makes my legs move. Take me where moss holds language. Take me where we have a name for the things we do.